going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our course breakdown for this week's Bank Utah Championship. Gonna get you ready for all of your exposure with a complete breakdown of the golf course at hand. That is the Black Desert Resort course, with a breakdown of the analytics, the averages that we had from 2024, the first time that this golf course was in play. We'll go hole by hole, show you the kind of shots required around this venue, as well as my key stats and comp courses of the week that I'm using to identify my top plays. And by the end, you'll be an expert on everything to expect. So with a lot to go through here, it's not waste any time at all and hop right on in. Most people would consider this a birdie fest, as Matt McCarty won this at minus 23, and that would be correct under calm conditions. It could get a little dicey if winds were to kick up, as the natural areas do lead to a lot of double bogeys around this course, but avoid the lava fields and you'll be pretty good around here. And it's a par 71 setup, 7,421 yards. It is an elevation though, so it plays significantly shorter than that scorecard yardage. In fact, probably closer to 6,900 yards, making it one of the shorter par 71s in effective yardage that we have in all of the tour. It does have bent grass from tip to toe, different strains of bent grass depending on which surface you're looking at. It does list rough at Kentucky Bluegrass at 2 inches, but there's not very much rough at this golf course. A little bit around the green, that's where it's most prominent, but outside of the fairways, you get to the lava fields real quick around this venue. The greens are average size, about 7,000 square foot. It is worth noting though that the hardest part of this golf course would be the greens. There's some speed to them, also some undulation as well when they get the PGA Tour players on it. So your 3-putt percentage a little bit higher than your PGA Tour average, and getting up and down is the hardest part of this venue. So keep that in mind when we go hole by hole, is that the around the green in that aspect of the golf course is pretty comparable to what we see most weeks. There's only 2 holes with water in play, as you'd expect for a desert style golf course. A whole bunch of bunkers though there, with 44 across the 18 holes. Last year though, if you weren't hitting it into the lava fields, it was pretty much a heyday with your scoring. So your fairway average was 86%, almost 12 fairways per round. Your green regulation average was nearly 76%, or about 13.7 greens regulation per round. But you can see the scrambling in the 3-putt percentages is where that difficulty came in. The scrambling percentage about 3.3% harder than every other week on tour. The 3-putt percentage about 1.5% higher than what we're used to seeing on tour. But that's not enough to make this a hard course, right? With all the easy to hit fairways, easy to hit greens, you don't even have to use that scrambling all that often. So birdie average was 4.54 per round. Bogey average was only 2.02 per round, which is how you get that minus 23 winner. And unless there's a whole bunch of wind this year, I wouldn't expect these averages to move that much. Some of the widest, if not the widest fairways that we have on the entire schedule in greens, although they're difficult once you get onto them, they're really easy to hit. So unless you're 4 or 5 putting on greens, you're not going to see a whole lot of big numbers. But go quickly hole by hole, just show you the shots that are required. First up is a mid-length par 4. The greens are well protected though. You can see that rough and some of the bunkering there. So off the tee though, it's a lot more straightforward. Hole 2 is 398, a little pitch and putt par 4, less than driver for most of those players. Also a little double green action, as you can see there towards the backside. 3 is 196, so this is a par 3. It does have the donut shape to it in the middle, with that bunker becoming a bit of a problem, but a large green complex, so it's not as tricky as you might think. 4 is 488, so one of the longer par 4s that you have on the course. It's one where you're mostly looking to make a par on, but it plays a lot shorter than 488 because of the elevation. Probably more like a 450 or 440 yard par 4. Next up, we have a 319 yard par 4. This one is drivable. You even saw players hitting 3-wood last year and getting close to the green, so that'll be one of the easiest holes on property. Next up is 6, which is 447, another mid-length par 4. They were in construction during the overhead view, so there's not as much to look at there. 7, the same thing, also that sandy abyss, but it is a reachable par 5. This one is not converted to the par 4 like the one on the back, and as such will be one of the easiest holes on site. 8 is the shortest par 3. It is the backside of that double green from before, and this one is a birdie hole because it's only a wedge. 9's another par 5. This one is reachable in 2 as well, and it does play slightly up to hill, but even then, at elevation, it's pretty much a 500-yard par 5. Hole 10, so starting on the backside, is a slightly harder side than the front, mostly because it only has 1 par 5. But the first hole is another pitch and putt par 4, so another one where you're at worst making par. Next up is 11, which is 487, another mid to longer length par 4. But once again, these play closer to 440 to 450, so even then it's not that bad. 12 is 458, a slight dogleg from left to right. You can't see the overhead view because of the construction, but a slightly tighter fairway because of this bunker that kind of constricts things right about 300 yards. 13 is the converted par 5, so this will be a par 4 for the players. It'll also play about 30 to 40 yards shorter, and with the elevation, it's not quite as bad as you would think for a 500 plus yard par 4. 14 is 326. This is a drivable par 4. It does have a natural area towards the front right, which caught a few players out last year, but for the vast majority of the field, it was a birdie or a par at worst. 15 is 200 yards, so this is a longer par 3, a longer approach shot around this golf course, but even then, one of the larger greens to compensate for it. 16 is 453, another mid-length par 4, plays closer to 410, 420, so you're going to see a lot of people hitting pitching wedge or even a degreed wedge in at 16. 17 is 152, one of the shorter par 3s. In fact, sometimes it is the shortest of the 4 depending on the pin location setup, but another one where you should conceivably have a birdie look because it's only a pitching wedge at most in. And then finally 18 is 558. This is a reachable par 5. In fact, probably the most reachable of the bunch as the tee shot is slightly downhill and it played downwind for most of the rounds last year. So some eagles that you're going to get at hole number 18. And as you can see here, there's just so much room to attack that unless you're shanking it or missing it 30 to 40 yards offline, you're going to be totally fine. So I'm mostly looking for putters, people that can make a whole lot of birdies. And speaking of, let's talk about our key stats of the weekend. This is the bet the number model that we have up. Last couple weeks, they didn't quite have it up on Monday, so we were going through some of my modeling instead. This time, though, we have the bet the number guys to pick their brains on it. The bet the number Black Desert Championship model is looking at a lot of scoring stats. So they do have the 4 core shots gained metrics on here. That'd be off the tee approach, around the green, and your putting. So trying to take a look at some of the best form players heading into that week. Totally agree on that. Your shots gained model should always have some sort of form over the last 24 or last 12 measured rounds. But what we're going to focus on here, which is far more interesting in terms of this specific week, would be these right 4 categories, the ones that are specifically tailored for this golf course. So let's start with approach from 100 to 175 yards. Going back to the course sheet before, there were a lot of mid irons around this golf course. In fact, a lot from 125 to 225. You can see the Bomber's Paradise, it ranks a 9 out of 10, so you can hit some drivers around here, particularly on the drivable 4s and the par 5s, and get a lot of advantage for that. But your iron distribution skews heavily in these middle 2 buckets. So you can see bet the numbers adding some extra emphasis there. They're trying to get the players that are best suited for this style of golf. Doc Redman has been on fire over his last few starts on tour. He's gaining about 0.3 strokes per round in that range, or per shot actually in that range, which is just ridiculous level stuff. But Davis Thompson, Manacero, Skins, McNeely, Wu, and Lipsky are all players that stand out there as well. But add this sort of metric on top of some of the other ones we're about to go through, and that's to get to the top 5 to top 10 of the modeling. So let's go to par 5 scoring next. There is only 3 par 5s on this golf course, but that's where a lot of your birdie production is going to come from, especially because all of them are reachable. So guys like a Kitayama, a Lipsky, a Norman Zhang, a Pearson Cootie, Vince Whaley, Michael Thorbjornsen, you name it, are also going to get a significant bump. And if they were showing up on that approach play from 100 to 175 yards, not only can they take advantage of some of the more scoreable holes that we have, but also on some of the harder holes, they're able to keep it together. So Kurt Kitayama, somebody that's checking both of those boxes, a David Lipsky doing so as well, a Mac Meissner, a Matt Wallace, and also a Rico Hoey, players that are plus players in both of those buckets so far. Then we'll look at birdie average. You can use birdie or better percentage, whatever you want to use. Just trying to find the players with the most birdie or better horsepower at this course is always something you need to do at a birdie fest. It was won at minus 23 last year, not expected to be a whole lot of wind this time around. So I want players that are aggressive and that can post 6 to 7 birdies per round. Not only does it help us for getting to the top 5 or the potential winner, of course, for this week, but also in large field GPPs from the fantasy angle, Draftkings scoring is directly correlated to your birdie or better production. So it's always good to incorporate this into your stat modeling, but especially at a birdie fest like this. Kurt Kitayama, 4.7 birdies or better per round over the recent sample. A Taylor Montgomery, a Kevin Yu, a Pearson Cootie, a Norman Zhang, also checking that box as well. And you can see some of them are checking the other boxes that we've already gone through. Like a Zhang was one of the best par 5 scorers. Same thing with a Pearson Cootie. A Kevin Yu has in fact checked all 3 boxes so far. And same thing with a Kurt Kitayama, which is why all those players are in the top 6 of the model this week. And then finally, driving distance is something that Bet the Number has incorporated as well. I'm actually not as big on the whole driving this week. I think it's more of an irons in a putting course than anything, but no doubt about it, driving distance helps you on the drivable par 4s, and it helps you on the par 5s as well, because you don't even have to hit a driver to reach some of those drivable par 4s. They can hit a 3-wood and potentially even hold the green surface like you saw from players last year. Like Matt McCarty, for example, in his last round, he made an eagle because he drove a green to like 3 to 4 feet. That happens with a lot of players in 2024. So those elite tier players are going to get a boost there. And of course, with that par 5 scoring average. So when you put it all together and take a look at the bet the number model, number 1 would be Kurt Kitayama, number 2 Taylor Montgomery. So you have the bomber, more of that ball striking heavy player up top, but a Taylor Montgomery, who of course is a birdie or better monster, but also one of the best putters that we have in the world. So good to see that there's some variety with the top end of our modeling, but a Cam Champ bomber who makes a lot of birdies. Same thing with a Michael Thorbjornsen. But then we have Matt Wallace, who's more of a form guy, a Kevin Yu, who's a little bit more positional off the tee. He also hits the ball a long way, but Kevin Yu is a top 50 accuracy player on the PGA Tour. Your Skinsey, he's not known as a bomber. A Steven Fisk, I mean, he can hit the ball decently far, but he's not a bomber by any means. It's good to see a very diverse top 10 here, whether it's the course horses, the really good putters, especially on that bent grass surface. It's something to add on top of this. If you want to add bent grass putting to your modeling, I think that makes a whole lot of sense as well. And the other thing I'll mention on top of some of the key stats we've gone through is another comp course, and that would be the Worldwide Technology Championship, El Cardinal di Monte, which I believe I may have mentioned before. If not, it's a very similar style golf course, resort style golf, wide open off the tee, relatively large greens, and winning score, which last year was minus 17. There was some wind when Austin Eckert won, but year before that, Eric Van Rooyen won at minus 27. So, minus 24 for Eckert. Still a decently low winning score. But look at this. Minus 25 in second. Minus 24 was in fourth the year before that. Minus 22, minus 21. There's not many courses where a minus 21 is only going to be a T6 or a T7. We need to use comp courses where we're getting the same kind of feel. And El Cardinal di Monte gives us that same kind of feel. And from the setup perspective, it has a lot in common as well. Now, the agronomy is a bit different. It is Paspalum. They have it listed as Bermuda over here, but it is Paspalum at the Worldwide Technology Championship. But the ball striking aspect, the birdie or better percentage, taking a look at par 5 scoring, all of that is similar across both tracks. So if you want to use that for some leaderboard crossover, I think it makes a whole lot of sense. If you take a look at the top 5, top 10 from last year, that's when Eckert won at minus 24. A lot of shorter players that showed up. You did have your Grazierman who hits the ball a long way. A few longer players like McNeely shows up. You scroll down a bit more and you start to get like your Garrick Higos, your Patrick Fishburns that are bombers or even borderline bombers. But look at all these shorter guys like a Justin Lauer, a Carson Young isn't known for being a long player off the tee. And Echeverria is more of an accuracy over a distance player. That's what I'm looking for in my plays this week, which is good to see from the Worldwide Technology Championship, especially if we're using it as a comp course. Year before that, Eric Van Rooyen won. He's an average to above average driving distance guy, so he doesn't really hammer that point home as much. But you know who does? Matt Kuchar and Camilo Villegas, both some of the shorter players that we have in the entire field. A Justin Suh, a Ryan Palmer as well. Neither one of those two players is known for that, and they were showing up at the Worldwide Technology Championship. So feel free to use that event, that golf course, for some of your crossover analysis on top of the key stats and comps that we already went through. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for the course breakdown this week. Go ahead, smash that like button if you guys haven't already. Also subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of the content to come, including our betting and DFS breakdown, which will drop a little bit later on tomorrow, as well as all the content throughout the rest of the fall swing. But hopefully I see you guys at the top end of the GPPs. We can cash out on an outright or two as well. That would be pretty awesome. Best of luck with everything. Also comment down below, guys, what you've got is the winning score for this week. And if you guess the correct winning score first, you'll win a free month on my Patreon page. And on my Patreon is where I post all the extra content that I do for these golf events, and includes my DFS projections. I've got that for main slate and round 2 through 4 showdown. My prop stuff as well. I've got all the averages for these golf courses. Also props and underdog and prize picks for rounds 1 through 4. You can earn that for free if you just give me that winning score. So go ahead, claim your score before anyone else steals it from you. Best of luck with that and all of your exposure. And I'll see you guys for the betting and DFS breakdown.